Hello and welcome to TMT Talks with me, Oisín Lunny, coming to you from Mobile World Congress 2021 here in beautiful Barcelona. Mobile World Congress is the world's premier event for all things digital, mobile and tech. And of course, last year it was cancelled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But this year we're back in Barcelona, we're back in business and we are back together. This year, the movers and shakers of the global tech and mobile scene have been gathered to explore some of the latest innovations in the mobile space and to look at the increasingly important role that mobiles play in our lives and to look about what they're going to bring to us in the future. After a difficult year, it is so great to be back. Welcome to Mobile World Congress 2021 with TMT Talks. And I'm delighted to be joined here at MWC 2021 by Geilan Malet-Bates, who is a true leader on all things tech and mobile and a true visionary in terms of how technology can help lead us to a more sustainable future. Welcome to TMT Talks, Geilan.
Thank you very much for having me, Oisín.
Hey, so it's obviously been an interesting year, to put it mildly. We've seen a lot of changes and a lot more people using tech in their lives. What have been some of your main observations of the past period of time that we've just come through?
Obviously, like you said, it's been a very interesting year for everybody globally, not just for those of us, I hail from the UK.
Yeah.
I think what it's brought to the fore really with the pandemic and given kind of my background in sustainability is the slight shift in attention away from just the environmental. The shift hasn't gone away from the environmental, but there's the additional focus on the social aspects and the sense of community and those who are kind of the more vulnerable in our society. So kind of from a company perspective, whether it's startups or whether it's the larger corporates, it's really looking at the S of ESG, the world that I hail from, and kind of more thinking towards that and how we can help others.
You know, your main passion, I believe, I hope I'm right in saying, is sustainability. You know, very much what you're passionate about, what you're carrying through the world. How do you think that companies in this space can be, as green as they possibly can be? What measures can they take? What guidelines can they follow to make sure they're on the right side of the whole sustainability agenda?
So if we're talking about sustainable finance as a sphere, I think one of the big challenges and one of the main problems those of us kind of really embedded in the system shout about is greenwashing.
Yes.
And that's companies, for those who don't know the term, because not everybody's familiar with the term greenwash, it's companies purporting that what they're doing is environmentally friendly, eco-green, but in fact it's not. What it says on the outside of the tin isn't what's happening on the inside. You have regulations, but I don't think, you have the EU taxonomy, you have in the UK, and also part of the EU, you have the SFDR. These are kind of regulations that have come into play that either regulate how companies themselves conduct what's considered green, what's not, and SFDR that looks more about the investment management sphere. Yeah. Because again, you have the sustainable finance sphere, you've got varying degrees of companies. You have, in my opinion, a handful that do it really, really well and are quiet about it. You have the middle kind of mass that majoritively are doing something kind of all right. And then you have kind of the ones that are, I'm not going to name any big names, but the kind of the ones that people tend to quote a lot because they're excellent marketers,
sure.
But are doing, but are kings of greenwash because they actually vote consistently against the resolutions that they're supposed to be voting for, but market to the world that they are the kings and champions of sustainability.
Yeah.
So, I think greenwash is a big thing. So I think companies really, and the problem is that the infrastructure that we're trying to work in there are inconsistencies in it. There are room and scopes for loopholes. When there are loopholes, it means taking advantage of the system. Companies are not really doing what they're supposed to do. There's a legal obligation and then there's a moral obligation, and there are differences in those two things. So I think really it's kind of, some of us are kind of putting more pressure, in terms of engagement. How are investment managers really engaging with companies, meaningful engagement, not just kind of token tick box, yes, we sat and had a meeting and a coffee and a nice chat, but really prodding them. I'm an ex-banker. I think that there's a lot more that the banks can be doing. In debt capital markets, what I hail from is really the oxygen shut on, shut off for companies and the financing and funding that they can get. There isn't anything being done in that space nearly as enough, because there's no kind of incentive, regulatory or otherwise, for them. So I think there's a lot that needs to kind of change and thought, because people do want to know how their money is being invested meaningfully. Yeah. And the other thing, when we talk about environment, I think there's a lot of talk about carbon, because that's the easy metric, that's kind of the easier, but actually people should also be talking about natural capital and biodiversity. And if you look at MSCI, S&P, they might have Tesla as being king of green, but how are they actually, the production of those cars from a non-carbon point of view actually doing? You think about EVs, there's controversy around EVs as well. So it's not the be-all, end-all solution, and we can't have binary thinking either. So I think there needs to be a happy medium, but we really need to look more thoughtfully at companies and what they're doing beyond just the obvious, I would say.
So it sounds like there's a bit of a distance for tech-centric companies to travel to actually become truly sustainable, to become truly green. What are some of the things that they can do immediately? If anybody's watching TMT Talks and they're like, we need to get on board with this, we need to get moving. What are some of the practical things that they should be aware of that they can do in their own companies?
I think first of all, just be authentic in your message. I think authenticity is incredibly important, it's what type of brand you want to build. But people actually want meaningful, to be interacting meaningfully with companies that are doing the right thing. So just be authentic in your message. If you're creating a CSR policy, and I don't think any company is too small, I work with some startups in getting them to think about their CSR policy, because no company is too small to do that. Even if it's just one line, but make it an impactful one. Like if you're passionate about, empowering more women into tech or education and giving them that, what are you doing beyond it just being a nice tagline for you? What are you actually doing? Are you doing, entrepreneurship, like, in internships, for example? Are you helping charities? Are you getting, supporting female founders? What are you doing? That's the first thing. The second thing I spoke to yesterday when I was sitting up the first part of that Impact Summit, the FinTech Summit, I was on the first panel, collaboration. That's an area of challenge as well for startups dealing with large companies. Large companies are archaic in their structure. Things take ages. I know that being an ex-banker, so I've seen both sides as a banker and an entrepreneur. So one thing that I said yesterday, to the bankers out there and large institutions in general, not just finance, but, have your heads of units, taught about and educated about entrepreneurship, innovation, why it's important, so that they can learn to embrace it, because a lot of them are not necessarily entrepreneurs. There's some of us who broke away from the sphere because we've got a vision, we can see pain points, and we're crazy enough to take the risk as entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship is risky business. But really kind of have that education in-house. Engage with startups more holistically beyond just what your own specific needs are. I know there are a lot of accelerators that take on different verticals within the tech space because they're championing that talent. But corporates tend to only look at what is it in it for me, and that's it. And if they're not, then it's which isn't very, very helpful. The other important thing, so collaboration is incredibly important. No one can do it alone. But the third point really for me, I would say, and again I spoke to yesterday, is data. Data, obviously, in your sphere, it's data privacy, data security is really, really important, and people want to be assured of how their data is being treated. But beyond that, really, when we talk about sustainability and building the infrastructures that are required, because we're talking about $3 to $6 trillion a year that are required for sustainability, and that's not even talking about the developing countries, okay? Because we're doing a lot more damage than we can actually see because it's over there. It's not here, right? The data that we collect, it's not acceptable at this day and age for any company to collect data and just keep it for themselves. That doesn't mean give away the data for free, but make it accessible to, especially startups. Don't make it prohibitive for them. Yeah. Again, in the spirit of collaboration, data is a real view of the world, and we don't actually have a real view of the world because regulation doesn't mandate Scope 3 reporting, and Scope 3 emissions are 75% of emissions reporting. So we actually we don't even have the proper picture of the world. And the data is very unstructured, it's very fragmented, it's, and everybody's just looking at carbon and not much else. So I think really data, think about, if we're using these great technologies like blockchain and all of that, think about how we don't even need, these technologies of today. It's just simple. How do you share that data? How can you use that data meaningfully in order to affect change everywhere else beyond just your own ecosystem and sphere? So I would say that to companies as well.
Absolutely. So it's a mixture of regulatory pressure, government pressure, investor pressure, very much, and also consumer pressure. Yeah. People will vote with their wallets. Investors will vote with their wallets.
They're doing so more and more now.
Yeah.
More
absolutely,
than ever.
And it's a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity.
I mean, if you're worried about your bottom line, just do the right thing and the bottom line will be taken care of. It's as simple as that.
100%. Those are words to live by. Well, listen, Geilan, thank you so much for joining us
here
very
much,
at TMT Talks in beautiful Barcelona at MWC 2021.
Thank you very much for having me.
And so that's it for TMT Talks with me, Oisín Lunny, coming to you from Mobile World Congress 21 here in beautiful Barcelona. Thank you so much for watching or listening from wherever you are. And also thank you for reaching out with some brilliant comments and questions for myself and the team at TMT Talks all about our episodes. If you want to reach out and share your thoughts on what we're doing at TMT Talks, just use the hashtag TMT Talks or drop me an email at oisín@tmtanalysis.com. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time, but in the meantime, look after yourselves. Thank you from all of us at TMT Analysis, from our production team right here in Barcelona, and from everybody at MWC 2021. We will see you next time.